The Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, requires many businesses to change their relationships with their employees. This video series considers 10 things that every hotel owner must know about the Affordable Care Act. Question number 1. What is the timeline for implementing the Affordable Care Act? On January 1st, 2013, employers were required to report health care coverage costs on their employees' W-2 forms. On October 1st of 2013, all employers are required to provide notice of coverage to their employees or notify their employees that they should search for coverage on the exchanges that are set up by their state or federal government. On January 1st, 2014, small businesses with fewer than 50 full-time employees who are not required to offer health care coverage but want to provide coverage to their employees are eligible to shop for coverage on the Small Business Health Options Program Exchange. This is also the date that the Small Business Health Care Tax Credit becomes available. Most importantly, January 1st, 2014 is the date that all individuals are required to carry health insurance or be subjected to penalties. Because of the recently announced delay, January 1st, 2015 is the date the employer mandate provision goes into effect. Large employers, those with 50 or more full-time employees, must begin offering mandated coverage to their employees or face penalties. Question number 2. Is my business required to participate? Obamacare imposes penalties on employers with 50 or more full-time employees who fail to provide adequate health care coverage. So you must consider, what does full-time employee mean under this law, and what is adequate health care coverage? The law defines a full-time employee as someone who works on average 30 hours or more per week. However, part-time employees, those working less than 30 hours per week, may add up to additional full-time employees. To determine your number of full-time employees, you start with counting every employee who works 30 hours or more. Then, you add up all your part-time employees' hours for the entire month and divide by 120. The two resulting numbers combined gives you your total FTE, or full-time equivalents. Remember, seasonal employees and direct relatives are not counted towards FTE status. Question number 3. What will the Affordable Care Act cost me as a hotelier? If you have 50 or more full-time equivalent employees, you are mandated to offer coverage to those employees working an average of 30 hours per week. The coverage you offer must be affordable and provide at least a minimum value. Affordability means that an employee's contribution cannot exceed 9.5% of their household income. A plan's minimum value means that the employer must pay no less than 60% of the costs for that coverage. Question number 4. What are the penalties for not complying with Obamacare? Employers with 50 or more full-time equivalent employees face 2 types of penalties for failing to offer coverage or failing to offer adequate coverage as defined by the law. These penalties are described as either strong or weak. A strong penalty is levied if the employer fails to offer its full-time employees adequate health care coverage and at least one employee enrolls in a government-run health care exchange. When this happens, the employer is subject to a fine of $2,000 times the number of FTEs minus 30. Now, a weak penalty is levied if the employer offers coverage that does not meet standards for affordability or minimum coverage, and at least one employee enrolls in a government-run healthcare exchange. When this happens, the employer is subject to a fine of $3,000 times the number of employees who enrolled in the healthcare exchange. Question number 5. What is a healthcare exchange? A healthcare exchange is simply a marketplace for the sale and purchase of health insurance. Individuals and businesses can shop at these online marketplaces, where insurance companies sell their insurance products. Exchanges are designed to bring together buyers and sellers of insurance with the goal of increasing access to coverage. The coverage offered through exchanges will be comprehensive and must meet all requirements specified in Obamacare. For small business owners, those with less than 50 full-time equivalent employees, there is still the option to use a healthcare exchange to offer your employees coverage. Small business employers who offer coverage are eligible to receive certain tax credits. Question number 6. If an employer owns portions of multiple businesses, how do you determine a total number of employees? Determining the total number of full-time employees requires first a determination as to whether a controlled group exists. If a controlled group does exist, then the total number of employees must be added together to see if you meet the 50 full-time equivalent employee threshold. There are 3 types of controlled groups: brother-sister, parent-subsidiary, or combined. A brother-sister control group is a group of 2 or more businesses in which 5 or fewer common owners own a controlling interest of the group and have effective control of those businesses. Controlling interest requires ownership of 80% or more of the stock of each corporation involved. Effective control requires ownership of more than 50% of the stock of each corporation when you count the least of each owner's share. A parent-subsidiary controlled group exists where one business owns a controlling interest that's 80% or more in at least one other business. If a subsidiary owns a controlling interest in a second subsidiary, the same rule applies. This is called a chain business. Now, a combined controlled group involves a business that is a member of either a brother-sister group or a parent subsidiary. Question number 7. Do owners or family members count as employees under Obamacare? An owner is not counted as an employee under the Affordable Care Act if he or she is a sole proprietor, a partner in a partnership, a shareholder owning more than 2% of an S corporation, or an owner of more than 5% of other businesses. Family members are not counted if they are an owner's children or grandchildren, siblings or step-siblings, parents or grandparents, step-parents, nieces or nephews, aunts or uncles, sons or daughters-in-law, fathers or mothers-in-law, or brothers or sisters-in-law. Question number 8. As an employer, what are the reporting requirements? Employers are required to provide employees with a summary of benefits and coverage. They must also explain what the employer's plans cover and their respective costs to employees. Employers must include the health care coverage cost of each employee on the employee's W-2 form. Question number 9. Is my business eligible for tax credits? Employers may qualify for healthcare tax credits if they have fewer than 25 full-time employee equivalents who earn an average of $50,000 per year or less. To qualify for the small business healthcare tax credit, a business must pay at least 50% of its full-time employees' premium costs. Now, starting in 2014, the small business healthcare tax credit is worth up to a maximum of 50% of the contribution towards employees' premium costs. The tax credit is highest for companies with fewer than 10 employees who also earn an average of $25,000 or less. The smaller the business, the larger the tax credit. Question number 10. Will the Obamacare law change? In some degrees, it already has. The United States Supreme Court has ruled a portion of this law unconstitutional. 3 other portions of the law have been delayed by the administration. And finally, Congress has under consideration no less than a dozen proposed changes to this law. Now, the implementation of Obamacare is an evolving process. For employers, the best advice is to consult both an attorney and/or an accountant if you have any questions.